So much for coming. I want to say on a personal note that at this moment, you have several SCAD current students and alumni working for you, and I just think that is so wonderful that you're able to have a fashion brand that's outside of New York, that's here in Atlanta, and that is doing so well. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Fun. All right, so let's start in the beginning. Can you tell me a childhood memory or a moment that helped shape your point of view on creativity and fashion?
Ladies first?
Ladies first.
Okay. So I grew up in a really creative house. My mom was a teacher first, but then a housewife, but super creative and painted. But we moved every couple of years. Every 2 years, we moved to a new house, and my mom always let us decorate our room any way we wanted. So, looking back, she probably was, giving us control, but I don't think she thought of it that way. She just was, if you want to do it, you can do it. So it was, I had one particular awesome one where I made like a little Swiss chalet, where I painted faux beams on the side and had a little Provençal print for the bedspread. I had a brother who was allowed to make this room where he had it was like Forensetti-ish Grecian, bare-breasted women with red carpet and a zebra bedspread, and she
little bit Elvis, a little bit Vegas.
Yeah, it was a brothelish thing. But the main thing was that she just acted inspired by that. She was like, "You just do what you want to do, and that's great." And I think that giving that freedom, and I just was really crafty. I was, if I wanted to do something, I did it. If I would get an idea in my head, I'd go to the fabric store, I'd buy the fabric, I would make something in a day. So I think my whole childhood was that, but the moving every couple years and was fun, and doing my own room.
Mine's not nearly as interesting as Ann's, but I had an older brother who was about 11 years older than me, and two older sisters who were 9 and 13 years older than me, and they were a huge influence on my life. And there was, this. I consumed a lot of culture early on, which means I watched a lot of TV. It was.
I like how you put that.
Yeah, Wild Wild West, Man from U.N.C.L.E., I Spy, Get Smart. Anything that was kind of had some action to it, and well-dressed guys. So I was grooving on the sort of the Western of Robert Conrad and Wild Wild West, and I don't know, even in elementary school, I was into what I was wearing, which was a little strange. But part of it also was fueled by my sisters and brother, who were always into clothes, and our family, my grandparents had a dry goods store, and a hardware store, and a furniture store. And so we were always around kind of the buying of product that was sort of being merchants. And I never really realized what kind of influence that had on me long term. But that kind of helped fuel my my taste for putting an outfit together. I always loved to put an outfit together. So
at what moment did both of you decide that, of course separately, that fashion was where you wanted to go?
For me, I think it was, I went on a trip to Europe with my brother, the one who made the awesome bedroom, right after college, and we went for like 3 months and went to, Paris and Italy, and I was really just blown away by the women on the street in Paris. To me, I was super attracted to, I think, more their confidence. I just saw these women who were super chic. They wore really simple clothes, that maybe they would just have a hair scarf in their head. And I just thought, wow, that's who I want to be. And I was, again, that's a time in your life when you're looking and you're in, the first time you go abroad. So I just was noticing everything, and I thought, I think that I can do that. And so I went to New York and got a job at Vogue.
You just did it.
I just did it. But I was really, it was a great time.
for me is kind of a continuation of what I was talking about earlier. And very early on, I think in junior high, I got a subscription to GQ, which in Mississippi was a little bit like, what? Where do you even get a GQ? You know? And so, I was, at that time, it was just before I got my driver's license. And the first thing I wanted to do when I got a driver's license was to get a car so I could go work in a clothing store. And at the time I was getting, my mother was tapering my pants for me, and I was buying these button-down shirts, and I was consumed with it. That was all I was. So sports and clothes were my driving interest. I had no idea that could be a vocational pursuit, until a little bit later on. And then when I got to college, midway through, I was like, I'm a loser here at college. I wasn't a very good student, but I was having fun and meeting a lot of nice people. And so I asked my dad, I said, hey, I want to go to design school in New York. And he was like, design school? What do you mean? I said, well, I want to go to Parsons or FIT. And he, in his inimitable way, was like, son, I'll help you go to regular school.
I'm sure some of you have heard that.
And then you can do anything you want. And so sure enough, I finished at Ole Miss with a degree in English. And I did have an art teacher along the way that Ann reminded me of that was super influential on my point of view about being creative. But when I finished, my dad said, you have that car out there. Why don't you sell that car and go to New York and see if you can figure it out? And so that was his kind of way of swinging back around going, okay, you did what I asked you to do. Now, here, take that car and go parlay and see if you can make it happen. So,
excellent. So how did you guys meet? What was the moment?
This is a great story. I hope some of you may have heard it already, so I don't want to bore you. But I actually saw Sid on the beach in New York.
In a handmade bikini.
Yeah, I was a handmade bikini.
Wait, who was in the bikini?
I was a Speedo.
No, he had on a great set of pink trunks that had turtles on them. And he had these beads on that were old Mardi Gras beads, but I thought, are those puka shells? Because I don't know about that. But we both went out to Long Island, but not to the Hamptons. This is the beach you go to, Long Beach, when you don't have a lot of cash and you're not invited to the Hamptons. But you can go out and see blue sky for the day. So I went with my friends, my roommate, and Sid evidently went with his friends, and I saw him from about, 20 yards away. And I just said, I'm going to meet that guy. So I walked over and asked him a silly question, like I think I said, do you know when the trains go back to New York?
And I had no idea.
And then we just kind of watched each other all day. So when he got up to leave, I quickly got my things and told my roommates that we were going to go. So I followed him to the train. But I actually lost him. He went off, and they were taking pictures by a car, and he had a southern accent. I thought, they don't even live here. So I sat down on the train, and if any of you ridden a train there's spaces between the cars, so he was standing between the cars.
But she didn't realize that I had circled back around to follow her. So it was a little bit like that Marvelette song. Does anybody know it's the hunter becomes the game? That was, yeah.
At any rate, I saw that, so I kept a seat empty next to me, and people kept trying to sit down, and I said, oh, the seat's taken. My roommate was like, so we sat down, and we, had a nice flirtatious conversation all the way back to New York. But at that time, the olden days, when there were no cell phones, we didn't give each other our numbers because that would have been a little awkward. So, but we knew where each other worked. So, this is a long story, but it's really good. No. So I was working at Vogue at the time, and we were doing a fashion shoot at the Palladium, which was a great nightclub at the time. So I was going to be out of the office all week. So I told Seal, the aged receptionist, that she had to answer my phone that week. I was working for this major editor who I knew she would answer her phone, but she wouldn't answer Ann Daggett's phone. So I said, you have to answer the phone. The man I'm going to marry me is going to call me this week. But he didn't call. So I went at it again, and I called him at work when I knew he wouldn't be there and left a message. And then he had the freedom to call me, and that was that. So, it's a good story.
It's the story of our life.
She knew it before you did.
Well, it kind of
everything,
is, actually.
Everything.
Anyway. So that was that. Sorry.
So when did you decide then, like what moment to become life partners?
Fairly soon.
I mean, for
after
me,
that.
this is how we
I
work.
had a
Like, I make a
girlfriend.
quick decision. It takes a
And then
really
he
long
just takes
time.
it.
I had to figure out what to do with the girlfriend.
Yeah.
So.
She didn't mention that part.
Yeah,
Because I wasn't worried about it.
there was no girlfriend as far as she knew.
Anyway, it was fairly quick. I mean, we got on really well. So that was that.
And the other thing that was nice though is that we were in the same business, and so you don't really have the future in mind, or at least plotted out the way, or it doesn't happen the way you think it's going to happen.
Right.
And so our lives were kind of shaped by the business we were in, but what happened after we met is we started becoming shaped by each other, and our views on things. And another of your questions, I think we can talk about it a little bit further. But what was interesting is you're in this life stage when you're post-college, or you're just starting your career, and you're in a city where your family's not, you don't have any history. So whoever you're around really starts to help shape who you are. And so she really was a shaper of my perspective on life and who I was and the things I liked. And I hope the same thing for her.
So when did you decide to become business partners?
That just kind of happened. I think when you're married, you're actually kind of a business partner. I would say that a good marriage is like that. But working together is very, very difficult, especially in the creative field when you're very sensitive. I mean, you're all creative people, and you're whether you like something or not is an expression of yourself. So back and forth in a creative world all day, we work together, and our feelings get hurt a lot, and we've had to work through a lot of that because it's personal. It shouldn't be, but it is. So we started really working as business partners when we came to Atlanta to open the store, and he needed me basically to do this with him, and I was a good partner. And
But we were also partners before, because she'd moved everywhere where I had a job, and we had, we got married in '87, and we met in '85, and so shortly after that we had our first child, and all of our decisions, I didn't make independent decisions. All my decisions were based off of, what do you want to do here? But also our...
You mean career choices?
Career choices,
Okay.
yeah. And so it really was a joint venture, because she was, we just didn't operate independently in that regard. But all those business choices were choices we made together. So she was my business partner in a strange sense the whole way through.
But when we came to, it was a big decision to start our business here. And it was, an entrepreneurial decision. And, we had to decide at one point, yes, we can do this together. And I don't think we saw it be.
Yeah, can you tell me more about that moment? I mean, that's kind of a scary thing to say, okay, let's go into business.
Well, I'll jump in, because we were living in Dodge, actually in Middleton, Wisconsin, which is next door to Madison, Wisconsin. We had 5 children. And I was the senior vice president of design for Land's End, which at that time was about a $2 billion company, which is a lot. That's a lot of business. I mean, that is a huge, monstrous business. And the things that were cool about Land's End that seem uncool in some ways is that they stood for quality and value and service. And that's the cornerstones of that business. And so when they hired me, they said, your mandate is to add style. But in a typical Land's End or Midwestern way, they said, but not too much. And so that was a little bit of a struggle. And so Ann, you can tell the story about how we went out there.
So I had grown up moving every couple of years, but throughout the Midwest a bit. So he said, will you come out and see if you like it there? I was like, Sid, I've lived in Wisconsin. I don't need to fly out there to tell you I don't want to live there. But you go decide, and if you want to move there, I'll move there with you. So.
And so and she also thought, in a creative position, it can be fairly tenuous.
Yeah, I thought he'd be there a year. I'm like, he'll be there a year, they'll hire him. So.
It took 7 years.
I can do a year.
It took 7 years before they fired me, and then it happened. But the thing about it is the creative position can be fairly tenuous, as we know, because you're called in to be a catalyst, and if it doesn't, it's a little bit like the way excuse the sports analogy, but it's a little bit the way coaches are treated today. You do not have very long to perform, okay? So my tenure there was actually a pretty long one. I think it was roughly 7 years. And what happened is there was a change of management, and we disagreed on, the executive team disagreed on where we were going, and my position was super important to me, and I wasn't really giving it up. So if I would have been in their position, I would have fired me also, because I wasn't going along. I just had a different point of view. So we find ourselves with 5 children in the middle of Wisconsin. Not a lot of fashion job options out in Wisconsin. And so Ann's like, well, we're going back to New York, right? And I said, well, I've got a couple ideas. And our oldest daughter was in, I think she was a junior in high school, and she's very talented graphically. She and Ann work very closely together now on really the creative vision for the company. But we started working on a project where I was thinking about this idea of doing an independent specialty store, like the old ones you would see in small towns across the South or across America, and also the ones you would see still in Europe.
And he really had this idea since I met him. I mean, he really, the first week I met him, this is what he's always said he's wanted to do.
And I wanted to be a designer, but I didn't want to be just a designer, because a designer has to hand something off to someone else, that hands it off to someone else, that hands it off to someone who works on the floor to sell it. It's too much space, too many handoffs in there for me. So I really was wanting to be in the more immediate business, and that was what was nice about working at J. Crew and Land's End. It was a more intimate relationship with the customer, because ultimately that's really, I think everybody that's creative wants to connect with people. You want to share a piece of your heart, and that's why Ann says it's so difficult, if someone doesn't like your idea, it's a bummer. And you really do kind of feel it, but then you got to break through that too. So anyway, I told Ann the idea, and she finally relented and said, okay, we've been poor before. It was kind of fun.
We can be poor again.
Yeah. No, I mean, we had kids in college. We put away some money for them to make sure we could educate them, and then we just said, we'll take a dive and do it.
So we looked at 9 cities and got it down to New York and Chicago, and then Ann said, how about Atlanta? I said, how about great?
We knew one person here. That was all.
So what was the decision for Atlanta?
We were introduced to, it was kind of real estate. I mean, we're design people, we're very creative, and we kind of just saw that we could make it space in this wonderful West Side Provisions District. We just kind of fell in love with the space and the tacos. We're a big driver, actually, because Sid has a really great nose. Like, he just gets into a place and he finds like the cool part of town. He's just really good at that. So he noticed that there was a line at Taqueria, like all day long, for a $2 taco.
We call it It's Only Tacos.
Yeah, it's really good. And then we have this good, better, best strategy, which we like to have, You want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's what we want to do when we have our business is we want it to be like you're coming into our home. And so we have a good, better, best strategy, which says we can blow open the idea of a demographic, okay? It doesn't say that you're socioeconomically don't have accessibility to this, or just the idea of we want some inexpensive prices and we want some expensive prices, because to make really, really, really nice stuff, it gets expensive. Yeah. And we know how to do that, and we want to do that, but we also want to have a pair of Levi's in the store that were $65 a pair, but we also have a tailor shop that can bespoke them for you. So it's very important for us to go, we don't want to just be a retailer, we don't want to just be a designer. We like value, we like service, we like connecting with people, we love an experience, and all that kind of leads to hospitality, which Atlanta, I mean, good grief, this place has it in spades. I mean, I don't mean anything against other cities, but we have a radio show. On a radio show, Jonathan's probably laughing here, we call Atlanta the coolest city in America. And because we feel that way. Because the people here, I mean, that was one of the reasons we came here in the first place, is 2 of the things we found when we came. The people of Atlanta are like waiting to hug you. Who was it that's got that we met earlier that says giving out hugs? Where are you? She just left? Yeah, what did her sign say, Daryl?
I'm giving out hugs. but we found people that are hopeful and people that were helpful. And I was like, this is fantastic. So,
But the West Side had good tacos, better was JCT, and best was Bacchanalia. So, you know, we're very romantic people. It was kind of like symbolic. That it's like, okay, that's where we should be. So that
Pretty
helped.
much
Food
it.
kind of drove our decision.
and also,
It drives a lot of mine, too.
And the people there, Eddie Quatrano, Mike Clank and Eddie Hernandez, and then Ford Fry, you know, and
Yeah.
before that, Randy Talinsky,
Yeah,
Jenna
Glenn, yeah.
Gilbert. I mean, the people that were there were pioneers, and part of that was Michael Phillips and Katie Bowman Walker, you know, building that place. I mean, in a strange way, it's a more successful version of the meatpacking district in New York.
That's what it reminded us of.
And it was super cool, but it felt refined, but it didn't feel fancy.
Yeah, and you could see the taste level. I mean, people who are going to Star Provisions to buy, you know, smoked salmon would probably, you know, try a little harder to find something that was out of the ordinary or special.
Different.
Yeah.
Well, we're at the end of our time, but I want to ask one last question because I feel as creatives, we often face failure. And then to get over that, that's where we make innovation and discovery. So can you tell us about a time that you faced failure and then what came of that?
We, you know, recently we've had something that we've really worked through at work. We're starting this made-to-measurement program.
Actually, let me jump in front of you
Okay,
just
good.
for 1 second. Every day we meet failure. Every cotton picking day we run into something that is going to be that we got to find a solution for. Every time. And you know what? We try not to look at it as a failure as a problem, but it's an opportunity. And that sounds cliche. I don't mean it to sound too Pollyanna-ish, but it's true. It's like, this is happening for a reason. You know, we've become big on trying to figure out what's root cause, okay? So we don't just fix it in the moment, but we go back and try to fix it at an earlier stage, you know, so that we don't continue to do that over and over again. So, sorry.
Well, yeah, when you're making something, you have an idea in your head, and then you make it, and it didn't come out the way you wanted it to, so you do it again. But we're doing this really big program that we're doing made-to-measurement shirts for men, and we really underestimated how complex it was. And so the thing that was really, we learned a lot from it was that it just was it was a timing thing. So it's been like a year late, okay? But because of that, because we underestimated it, we felt like a failure a lot. Like, you know, instead of just getting ahead of it, figuring out what you had to do, and then being more realistic about it. But it was, you know, it's really tricky, and we wanted it to be a design shirt, and like it has to do with algorithms, and it's really, really complicated. So I think that the success of that, which we're just getting to now, is really rewarding, but it really was a big, big stumbling block.
And we could have taken
Yeah.
a more simplistic way of solving it, but it wouldn't have been true to
Yeah.
really what we do. And you know, one of the things, just to go back, not to take up any more time, but one of the real differences between Ann and me is that, and it's one of the things I sometimes struggle with, is Ann is, as you can tell by her earlier story, can make a decision pretty quickly, okay? I have to wrestle with it and, you know, sort it out. And
It's really hard to work together.
very difficult. And
Come on, just do it.
just make a decision. And you know what? Half the time she's right, and half the time she's not. And so finding that, well, 60% of the time she is. 40% she's not. But it's important though to enjoy the complementariness of our relationship and our talents, because we were brought together. You know, who knew what was going to come out of this? So anyway, to get through this process, you just got to keep pushing. You got to keep pushing, and you can't. You know, you make, I hate to say make compromises. You make some adjustments, but we never really compromised what it was we were trying to accomplish. Okay.
So you turned that kind of a failure into a success.
We hope so. We just launched it on Wednesday.
We'll declare it an early success.
Exactly.
Well, thank you both so much.
You're welcome.
I'd love to open it up to question and answer. Yes, join me in thanking them. So raise your hand if you have a question. If we have something, there we go.
I saw this gentleman in the back first, so I'm going to go for him.
Hey, so much of the experience is being in the store and the customer service and just the ambiance. As you guys move into more online retailing and digital, how do you transfer that experience and that specialness to everybody else?
That's such a great question. I'm going to let Ann answer that.
So, we thought about that from the very beginning when we did our website, and we were like, how are we going to recreate what we do here? And we just knew from the beginning we weren't. It's not the same. But we said, we're just going to try to make the digital experience like we make the store experience the best of what it can be, and to have our voice to it, because there's so much awesome stuff out there everywhere, that the thing that differentiates our stores and what we do is just that it's our point of view. That's the only thing that we have that's different from anybody else in a way. It's just what we like. So the same voice that we have in the store is the voice that we have on our website. And what I love about it actually from the very beginning is that we'd spoken about our oldest daughter is very a big creative part of our team. And it's really cool because she's like the perfect combination of Sid and I, because she is a combination of Sid and I. So her voice really resonates on the website. She does a lot of the copy. We have a big team. A lot of people do it, and I'm grateful for all of them. But there's a lot of trust that we have with her. And so we just try to make it seem like us and look like us and have great back end, because we want it to be easy for people. So we have an amazing group of people that make it work really well. So we want to be the best. So it's super competitive. Like that was another question that I didn't get to answer. But we're all really driven, and we're really led a lot by him, because he just wants to make it the best. Which is why he
one
takes
other thing
longer
to
to
add to that is that a lot of the same ideals that we've set up in the shop, like returns. If you want to return something, we don't care when you bought it, just bring it back. It's not ever right until you feel it's right, or until the customer feels it's right. So we offer that online also. And one of the early things was, we charged for shipping in the early days, and the only person that really was for charging for shipping was for me, because I came from a background at J. Crew and Land's End where that helped fund your business. So Ann, Elizabeth, David, all the key pieces of our team said we shouldn't charge for shipping. And so I was the only one that said we need to, we have to. And so I got outvoted, and it was fantastic, because it really is more reflective of who we are as people. Because if you come buy a suit and you're going out of town, you've got an interview, so you got an interview in New York and you need a suit, we'll come meet you at the airport with the suit. We'll bring it to your house, whatever it takes to take some anxiety out of your life. And that's what we try to do online too, is how do we make that handoff or the baton pass as simple and as easy as possible. So we try to do that online. It's difficult to do, but we're always refining what else we can do to try to make that a better experience.
Great. Do we have another question?
Yes. Hi, I'm Maya Cody. And I have two questions. One, how did you manage the process of going from corporate to entrepreneurship? And how much capital did you have to start off with?
I would say that was it was a struggle to go for, and Ann reminded me early on, she said, listen, Sid, this thing may not scale the way you hope it will. You may be a shopkeeper the rest of your life. And I was like, okay, that's cool, because again, the connection and the sharing with people, the toughest part for being in that one store situation is finding makers that will accept the numbers you give them. Because a maker has a factory that he's running, and he or she needs a certain minimum to run your product, especially if it's our pattern or our design.
I would say, because I did the business part of our business in the beginning, the capital was a lot, and because we had a really big idea and we were willing to risk it. And the thing with the great part about our business was that, Sid had wanted to do this since I met him, okay? It would have been totally different. It wouldn't have been the same. It took us all these years of gaining the experience and frankly gaining the capital to be able to do it in just the way we wanted. And I think there's trade-offs. You can take capital from other people. Those are all different scenarios, and they can be awesome. For us, it was really special because they were our own mistakes, and we were willing to pay for them. And so for us, it's a vision of exactly the way we wanted it to be, and because we could foot the bill. So I think it was a big risk. It's been a wonderful reward, but it's scary. And you know, entrepreneurship is different for everybody. But it was he's a born entrepreneur. I mean, he did well in the corporate world, but somebody that's a special kind of person, it's actually not me. I did not want to do this business. I really did it out of love for him and saying, we can try it. But I'm not that way. He just is straight ahead, full force, energy, ideas. An entrepreneur looks at something and says, I can do that better. I'm not that way. I want to, but it drives him. So
The other piece to that is when you start small. You know, we were honestly looking back, we were a little over ambitious. I mean, 3,000 square feet.
A lot of people thought it was really stupid.
Oh,
and it probably was.
I've got 20 friends that were like, we were worried for you. Yeah. We were more worried for Ann and your kids. So it was crazy, but as we had enough of a cushion to at least go out and try it. And
I thought he was employable, so I said, if
ultimately
it doesn't work.
employable.
All right, great. Do we have one more?
Hi, I'm Sierra. I'm a student at SCAD. So it's very inspiring to hear your story as a young professional. But you mentioned how when you got here, you know no one. So can you explain the process of getting people to work for you and all these creative people? And also, if you have internships, because I'm looking.
That's the go-getter attitude, right?
When we came here, we brought a guy with us from Land's End, and who lived in our basement for a while. And my biggest...
I had 5 kids. We were starting a business, and I had an adult man living in the house.
But the biggest thing was finding the tailor. That was all I could do, was say, please, God, help me find a tailor. No joke. And sure enough, this guy availed himself. His name is Quang Dao, and he is a he's a cornerstone of our business. I mean, he's a friend, he's an artist, he's an engineer, he's a businessman. He's 77 years old. He's actually in our factory, in our suit factory in the south of Italy right now with our agent from Italy, working by himself with this factory. Nobody in the factory speaks English. The guy is unbelievable. We walked into a very, very, very important suit company in Naples, and we wanted them to make this. The name of it is Khitan, and Khitan is crazy expensive and a beautiful product. And when he walked in, the Italians, who were very, very interesting, when they look at this guy, they see him, he was the Laotian guy, and they're like, who's the Chinese? That's their way of saying, who's the Chinese guy? Well, he doesn't speak any English, and Pasquale, the lead tailor for Khitan, doesn't speak any, Dow doesn't speak any Italian, and Pasquale, the master tailor there, doesn't speak any English. 2 hours later, they don't need to speak. They're speaking with this. It was unbelievable to watch that occur. And it just shows you also that our boundaries are not always as impenetrable as they may seem. He can talk with any tailor in the world. It's unbelievable to watch that.
But to find him, you really just walked into a cleaners.
Called Buckhead Alterations, where Kroger, the disco Kroger is.
Yeah.
And I saw that sign, Buckhead Alterations. I'm going to try. I didn't have anything to lose. I went in there, and I asked the woman there. She's like, no, I don't know anybody. And then you heard the doorbell ring. This big man walks in. You could tell he was the boss because all the women went scurrying for their sewing machines. He said, can I help you? I said, yeah, I'm looking for the best tailor in Atlanta. He said, give me your card. I gave it to him, and 2 weeks later, I get a phone call. This guy says, hi, I'm looking for Sid Mashburn. I said, this is Sid. How can I help you? And that was a little bit of the magical realism of Atlanta.
I mean, people just kind of came to us. It was not easy. I mean, the growth of our company has been really sweet in retrospect, but it's just like anybody else. You just look for people, you ask around. I mean, You know, we didn't need that many people in the beginning because nobody came in the shop in the beginning.
I was very good at
Yeah.
ping pong in the early
Yeah,
days. But then we had two young guys, Matt Lambert and Pete Samuelson, who were working at Neiman's. Actually, Pete was working at Polo. And they just came to the store one day to check it out. They're like, well, we heard about this store, wanted to check it out. And they said, can we come work for you? I said, well, you got to go tell your other guy you're quitting first before you come to me. I don't want to be a poacher. And sure enough, they came, and they're both still working with us.
Oh, wow.
So it's 10 years later, 9.5 years later. So I'm sorry, you also, blue shirt guy had a question too. Yeah. I'm sorry to call you blue shirt.
That's how he thinks.
What I am, yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about branding. You talked about how when you came here, you only knew 2 people in Atlanta, and Sid Mashburn may mean something in the menswear world today, but I don't know how big it was then. You know, you're building a brand based upon your name. What was kind of the process there of how you built that from I'm Sid Mashburn from Land's End and from J. Crew. Now I'm doing my own shop, and getting people to kind of trust that brand for what it was and what it stood for and what it stands for today.
Well, it actually, I mean, Sid had a great reputation in the menswear business, which is why he was able to get factories and get fabric suppliers to give him a chance. He really just, business-wise, it didn't make sense for them to do that, but they just, he's a great guy, and they really just said, okay. So his prior work led him to be able to do this. But we didn't have a brand. I mean, we were not even going to call it our name. The going name was Dubuque, which is where I was born in Iowa. And a friend was like, I don't really like that. You really need to do.
He said it really evokes beautiful images of riverboat gambling.
I thought it sounded French. Those are my people. But anyway, you know, it was a big risk because, again, we were entrepreneurs. We thought, okay, this can really fail. So we shouldn't do our name because we want to be able to sell it or get rid of it. But, you know, we have a name now. I mean, I can't quit, which is really tough.
But the other thing is to add in there is early on, we built a brand based off of association. So we were associating ourselves. We were paying for that association by being next door to Bacchanalia, by being next door to Taqueria, by being next to Ford, which Ford was only open 6 months at that time. So he was not even Ford Fry yet to speak of. He's a chef from, you know, Eatsy's.
Yeah.
So, but that association, I mean, that's the other thing to remember is you want to, your adjacencies or your co-tenancies, if you open a shop, you want to be around people that reflect your values. And so that helped, and also friendships from prior life, you know, of the editors at GQ called up, and this is interesting, is they said, we don't have a Southern strategy. They knew that the South was becoming more robust from a business perspective and more powerful, and they're like, we want that. And they are like, Sid, you're down there doing it, let's do something together. So they had a massive party for, you know, in our shop early on. And so you see also the convenience of them trying to build their business, drafting off of us in a local market, and we drafted it off of them.
You know, I know we're running out of time, but I just want to say one thing. Actually, we didn't start out to build a brand. We started out, and we hope that, but I think that sometimes people get it backwards. We started out opening a shop with the stuff that we loved, and we wanted to make stuff, and then we just wanted to build a shop to see where it went. So everything evolved from that. But if you start out just saying, I want to be a brand, I don't know if it works that way. I mean, it can be, a lot of people do that, but it wasn't how we wanted to do it. We just wanted to.
It does.
You wanted
and it
something
can.
to back up.
It would have felt
Back it up.
disingenuous for us because it was not a reflection of our heart.
I mean, it was just one day at a time, and just make this day great, make this jacket great, get a great person, put some flowers in the store, and then just keep making it better.
And kill it with service. I mean, in the early days, we took, you know, alterations from Men's Warehouse or Savile Row. We didn't care. It's like, bring it to us. We will fix it because we've got the best tailors in town. And so when guys would walk in, they'd see me and, you know, Matt and Pete, you know, three kind of tall, skinny guys wearing clothes that seem too small for us. You know, people were like, "What the hell is this?" You know. But then they would see the tailor,
Yeah.
and the tailor was like the
Yeah, I
Wolfgang
mean, you had
Puck.
great ideas. That was a great idea.
And it's like the open kitchen of Wolfgang Puck. You know, is that you had the tailors part of the store. They'd look over there and go, "These guys look funny or strange to me, but this place is legit. These guys know what they're doing." So again, the associative, you know, relationship there was super important. Does that answer your question? Okay.
All right, y'all, let's give Sid and Ann and Sarah a round of applause.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.